Taxi driver gives ride to 70-year-old woman alone at night. In the car, she says his name and scares him. Chapter 1. The Unexpected Passenger. The rain hammered against the windshield of Marcus Johnson's yellow cab as he navigated through the dimly lit streets of Chicago's South Side. It was nearly midnight on a Thursday in late October, and the city seemed to exhale a cold, damp breath that settled into his bones. Marcus had been driving for 12 hours straight, his back aching, his eyes burning from the glare of headlights reflecting off wet pavement. At 42 years old, Marcus had been a cab driver for nearly 15 years. After losing his job as a warehouse supervisor during the 2008 recession, he'd taken to the streets, learning every shortcut, every pothole, every dangerous intersection in the city. His cab had become his second home. The worn leather seats knew the curve of his spine. The steering wheel fit his calloused hands like a familiar handshake. Before we continue with Marcus's story, make sure you're subscribed to our channel. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications so you never miss these incredible real-life stories. It really helps us bring you more content like this. The radio crackled with dispatch calls, but Marcus had learned to tune them out during these late-night hours. He preferred the quiet routes, the time to think, to plan how he'd make next month's rent, how he'd afford his daughter's college textbooks. Sarah was a sophomore at Northwestern now, studying to become a teacher. She was his pride, his reason for working these brutal shifts. Marcus slowed at a red light on 79th Street, near the corner where an old church stood with its stained glass windows dark and empty. The neighborhood had seen better days. Boarded-up storefronts lined the street, their faded signs promising businesses that no longer existed. A liquor store's neon sign flickered intermittently, casting strange shadows across the wet sidewalk. That's when he saw her. An elderly woman stood alone under a broken bus shelter, her thin frame hunched against the wind. She wore a beige raincoat that looked decades old, clutching a worn brown purse against her chest. Her white hair was plastered to her face by the rain, and even from inside his cab, Marcus could see she was shivering. He had a rule: never pick up passengers in this neighborhood after dark. Too many drivers had been robbed, threatened, worse. But something about this woman made him pause. She reminded him of his own mother, who had passed away 3 years ago. His mother had that same dignified posture, even in hardship, that same way of standing that suggested she'd once been proud and strong. Marcus pulled over, rolling down the passenger window. The woman looked up, startled, her pale blue eyes wide with a mixture of hope and fear. "Ma'am, you need a ride?" Marcus called out over the sound of the rain. She hesitated, studying his face through the window. Up close, Marcus could see she was probably in her early 70s, with deep lines etched around her eyes and mouth, lines that spoke of laughter and sorrow in equal measure. Her hands trembled, though whether from cold or something else, he couldn't tell. "The buses stopped running an hour ago," she said, her voice surprisingly clear despite her frail appearance. "I've been waiting. I need to get home." "Where do you live?" Marcus asked. "Oak Park, near the elementary school on Madison Street." Marcus winced internally. Oak Park was a good 40-minute drive from here, especially in this weather. The fare would be decent, but something told him this woman didn't have much money. If you're enjoying this story so far, show some love by hitting that like button, and comment below what city you're watching from. I love hearing where our viewers are from around the world. "Get in," Marcus said, unlocking the doors. "You'll catch pneumonia out here." The woman's face softened with relief. She moved slowly, carefully, opening the back door and settling into the seat with a small grunt of effort. As she closed the door, Marcus caught a whiff of lavender and old paper, like a library that hadn't been visited in years. "Thank you," she said softly, buckling her seatbelt with shaking hands. "You're very kind. Not many people would stop in this neighborhood at this hour." "Yeah, well," Marcus said, pulling back into traffic. "My mother raised me right. Couldn't leave you out there." He adjusted the rearview mirror and caught sight of her face. In the dim light of passing street lamps, she looked both ancient and ageless, her eyes holding a depth that made him uncomfortable in a way he couldn't quite explain. "What's your name?" she asked. Marcus Johnson." There was a long pause. The only sounds were the rhythmic swish of the windshield wipers and the hiss of tires on wet asphalt. Marcus glanced in the mirror again and saw the woman staring at him with an intensity that made the hair on the back of his neck stand up. "Marcus Andrew Johnson," she said quietly. "Born April 15th, 1982. Your mother's name was Dorothy Jean Johnson. She died of pancreatic cancer 3 years ago this December." The cab swerved slightly as Marcus's hands jerked on the wheel. His heart hammered against his ribs. He quickly corrected course, then looked in the mirror again, his eyes wide. "How do you know that?" His voice came out strangled, barely above a whisper. "Who are you?" The woman didn't smile. She simply looked at him with those pale blue eyes, and Marcus saw something in them now. Not malice, not cruelty, but a profound sadness that seemed to reach across the years. "My name is Eleanor," she said. "Eleanor Price. And Marcus, I know your name because I've been looking for you for a very long time." Marcus's mind raced. Was she a stalker? Some kind of con artist? But how would she know about his mother? That information wasn't exactly public. His grip tightened on the steering wheel, knuckles going white. "Looking for me? Why?" He tried to keep his voice steady, professional. His eyes darted to the door locks. They were engaged. He could pull over, ask her to get out. But something stopped him. Despite his fear, despite the strangeness of the situation, he felt drawn to hear what she had to say. Eleanor leaned forward slightly, and Marcus could see tears beginning to form in her eyes. "Because," she said, her voice breaking, "50 years ago, I made a terrible mistake, and I've been trying to make it right ever since. Your mother, Dorothy, she was my daughter." The world seemed to tilt on its axis. Marcus slammed on the brakes, pulling over to the curb with such force that both he and Eleanor lurched forward against their seatbelts. He threw the car into park and turned around fully in his seat, staring at the old woman in disbelief. "That's impossible," he said. "My mother never mentioned you. Never. Her parents died when she was young. She told me she grew up in foster care." "She did," Eleanor whispered, and now the tears were flowing freely down her wrinkled cheeks. "Because I gave her up. I was 17 years old, unmarried, and in 1954 that was. It was shameful. My parents forced me to give her away. I didn't even get to hold her. They took her from me in the hospital, and I never saw her again. But I never forgot her. I never stopped looking." Don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. This story is about to get even more emotional, and you won't want to miss what happens next. Hit that subscribe button now. Marcus felt like he couldn't breathe. His grandmother? This woman claiming to be his grandmother had been alive all this time, and his mother never knew? Or did she know? Had she known and kept it secret? I don't understand," Marcus said. "If you were looking for her, why didn't you find her when she was alive? Why now? Why me?" Eleanor wiped her eyes with a trembling hand, pulling a faded photograph from her purse. She held it out to Marcus, who took it with numb fingers. The photo was old, the colors faded to sepia tones. It showed a young woman, barely more than a girl, holding a newborn baby wrapped in a white blanket. The girl's face was heartbroken, her eyes swollen from crying, but there was love there too, fierce and desperate. On the back, written in careful script, were the words, "Dorothy Jean, born September 3rd, 1954. I will find you again. I promise. Love, Mama." Marcus stared at the date. His mother's birthday. His hands began to shake. "I searched for years," Eleanor continued, her voice raw with emotion. "But the adoption records were sealed. I hired investigators when I could afford it, but they all came up empty. It wasn't until 6 months ago that I finally found a lead, a woman who worked at the hospital back then, now in a nursing home." She remembered. She told me Dorothy's adoptive parents' names. From there, I was able to trace her. 6 months ago," Marcus repeated hollowly. "My mother died 3 years ago." "I know." Eleanor's voice broke completely now, dissolving into sobs. "I know, Marcus. I was too late. I was 3 years too late. But when I found out she had a son, when I found out about you, I knew I had to try. I had to meet you, I had to tell you that she was loved, even when she didn't know it, that I never stopped loving her, that not a single day passed when I didn't think about her, wonder about her, pray she was happy. The rain continued to fall, drumming on the roof of the cab like 1,000 tiny fingers. Marcus looked at the photograph again, at this young girl who had been forced to give up her child, at the baby who would grow up to be his mother. He thought about all the times his mother had seemed sad for no reason, all the questions about her past that she'd deflected with a smile and a change of subject. What do you think Marcus should do? Comment below with your thoughts. And don't forget to like this video. It helps more people discover these powerful stories. She had a good life, Marcus heard himself say. Not easy, but good. She became a nurse. She married my father. He was a good man, though he died when I was 10. She raised me by herself after that. Worked double shifts to keep me fed and clothed. She was strong, kind. She would help anyone who needed it. Eleanor nodded, pressing a tissue to her eyes. She sounds wonderful. She sounds like the daughter I dreamed she would be. Marcus turned back around in his seat, his mind whirling. Part of him wanted to be angry, at Eleanor for giving his mother away, at fate for bringing them together too late, at the world for being so cruel. But as he looked at this broken old woman in his rearview mirror, all he felt was a profound, aching sadness. Why were you standing out there tonight? He asked, in that neighborhood at this hour. Eleanor's laugh was bitter. I've been coming to this part of the city for weeks, Marcus. I found your cab registration information. I know that was probably wrong, possibly illegal, but I was desperate. I learned your roots. I knew you worked Thursday nights. I've been waiting, trying to find the courage to approach you. Tonight, I finally decided. If I didn't do it now, I might never do it. So this wasn't random. No, it was planned. Poorly planned, perhaps, but planned. She paused. I'm sorry if I frightened you. I needed you to know. I needed someone who loved her to know that she wasn't abandoned because she wasn't wanted. She was abandoned because I had no choice. Do you understand? Marcus closed his eyes, taking a deep breath. When he opened them again, he put the cab in drive. Where in Oak Park did you say you lived? The drive to Eleanor's apartment was mostly silent. Marcus's mind was too full of questions, emotions, memories. He thought about his mother's favorite song, You Are My Sunshine, which she used to hum while cooking dinner. He thought about the way she'd insisted he call her every Sunday, no matter how busy he was. He thought about the last time he'd seen her, in the hospital, her hand in his as cancer consumed her from the inside out. Had she known about Eleanor? Had she suspected? Or had she died never knowing her mother had spent a lifetime searching for her? When they pulled up to a modest apartment building in Oak Park, Eleanor reached for her purse. What do I owe you? She asked. Nothing, Marcus said immediately. You don't owe me anything. Marcus? Ma'am, Eleanor, I need time to process this. It's a lot. Eleanor nodded slowly. She wrote something on a piece of paper and handed it to him. This is my phone number and address. If you ever want to talk, if you have questions, if you just want to know more about your mother's history, I'm here. I understand if you never call. I understand if you need space, but please know that meeting you tonight, knowing that Dorothy had a son like you, it's the greatest gift I could have asked for. She opened the door and stepped out into the rain. Before she closed it, she turned back one more time. Your mother would be so proud of you, she said. The man you've become. I can see her in your eyes, you know. The same kindness, the same strength. And then she was gone, disappearing into the building like a ghost from another time. Don't stop now. Chapter 2 is coming up, and you're going to want to see how Marcus processes this life-changing revelation. Make sure you're subscribed so you don't miss it. Chapter 2, Unearthing the Past. Marcus didn't go home that night. Instead, he drove aimlessly through Chicago's streets, watching the city slowly wake up as dawn broke over Lake Michigan. The rain had stopped, leaving the world washed clean and gleaming. But inside the cab, Marcus felt like he was drowning. He kept looking at the photograph Eleanor had given him, studying every detail. The young girl in the picture looked terrified and heartbroken. But there was something in her jaw, a set determination that Marcus recognized. His mother had that same look when she'd worked through the night to pay bills, when she'd refused to let him quit school to work, when she'd fought cancer with everything she had. By 7 in the morning, Marcus found himself parked outside his apartment in Pilsen, a modest 2-bedroom he'd lived in for the past 8 years. He climbed the stairs slowly, his legs heavy with exhaustion and emotional overload. Inside, he made coffee and sat at his small kitchen table, Eleanor's phone number burning a hole in his pocket. Should he call? Should he ignore it? What did he even want from this situation? His phone buzzed. It was a text from his daughter, Sarah. "Dad, are you okay? You usually text me good morning by now. Long night." Marcus smiled despite himself. Sarah always knew when something was wrong. They'd been a team for so long, just the two of them after Dorothy died, that they could read each other's moods from miles away. He typed back, "Long night. Got a lot on my mind. Can I call you later?" "Always. Love you, Dad." "Love you too, sweetheart." Marcus set the phone down and picked up the photograph again. He walked to his bedroom closet and pulled down a cardboard box from the top shelf. His mother's things. After she died, he hadn't been able to go through most of it. The pain was too fresh. He'd kept her jewelry, her favorite books, some photographs, but so much remained untouched, sealed away like a tomb. If you're invested in Marcus's journey, hit that like button and let me know in the comments. Have you ever discovered something that changed your understanding of your family history? Now, with trembling hands, he began to sort through the contents. There were report cards from his childhood, birthday cards he'd made for her in elementary school, her nursing school diploma, and then, at the bottom of the box, wrapped in tissue paper, he found something he'd never seen before. It was a small wooden box, no bigger than a deck of cards, with intricate carvings on the lid. Marcus opened it carefully. Inside was a faded hospital bracelet, the kind they put on newborns. The name was almost illegible, but Marcus could make it out. Baby Girl Whitmore, September 3, 1954. Whitmore must have been Eleanor's last name. There was also a letter, yellowed with age, still in its envelope. The envelope was addressed to Dorothy Whitmore at an address in Springfield, Illinois, but it had been marked Return to Sender, addressee unknown. The return address was in Chicago. Marcus's hands shook as he carefully opened the envelope, knowing his mother had somehow kept this despite never having lived at that address. The letter inside was dated 1972. His mother would have been 18 then, just after she'd graduated high school. The handwriting was shaky, emotional. "My dearest Dorothy, I don't know if you'll ever read this. I don't even know if this is really your address. I've been searching for so long, following dead ends and false leads. But I found a record that suggested you might be here, in Springfield, and I had to try. My name is Eleanor Price, though when you were born, I was Eleanor Whitmore. I am your mother, your birth mother. And not a day has passed in 18 years that I haven't thought about you, wondered about you, loved you. I was 17 when I had you. My parents, your grandparents, they sent me away to a home for unwed mothers. They said I was a disgrace, that I had brought shame on our family. When you were born, they wouldn't let me hold you. They took you away immediately. I screamed for you. I begged them to let me keep you, but I had no rights, no say. I was just a child myself. I want you to know that giving you up was not my choice. If I could have kept you, I would have. I would have fought the world for you. But in 1954, girls like me didn't have choices. We had only shame and secrets and loss. I've been looking for you since I turned 21 and could legally access some records. But everything is sealed. No one will tell me anything. I don't know who adopted you. I don't know if you're happy. I don't know if you're even alive, though I pray every night that you are. If you do read this somehow, please know that you were wanted. You were loved. You are loved. I never gave up on you, and I never will. With all my heart, Eleanor Price, your mother. Marcus read the letter 3 times, tears streaming down his face. His mother had known. She'd kept this letter, this hospital bracelet, this evidence of a woman who had searched for her. But she'd never said a word to him about it. Why? He thought back to his childhood, to the times his mother had grown distant and sad, especially around her birthday. He'd always assumed she was thinking about her adoptive parents, who had died before Marcus was born. But maybe she'd been thinking about Eleanor. Maybe she'd been thinking about this letter, about a woman who had tried to find her, but failed. Subscribe to our channel right now if this story is touching your heart. We share real stories about real people, and your support means everything. Marcus stood up abruptly, making a decision. He grabbed his phone and dialed the number Eleanor had given him. It rang 4 times before a hesitant voice answered. Hello? Eleanor? It's Marcus Johnson. Can we meet? Today? I found something I think you need to see. There was a long pause, then, Yes, of course. Where? There's a diner in Lincoln Park. Lou's place. Do you know it? I can find it. Noon? I'll be there. Marcus hung up and looked at the letter again. His mother had kept this secret for decades. But now, perhaps, he could give Eleanor something his mother never could. Closure, connection, a piece of the daughter she'd lost. At noon, Marcus sat in a corner booth at Lou's place, nursing a cup of coffee that had gone cold. The diner was a Chicago institution. Red vinyl booths, black and white checkered floors, the smell of bacon and pancakes thick in the air. It had been his mother's favorite place for Sunday breakfast when he was a kid. Eleanor arrived exactly on time, looking far more composed than she had the night before. She wore a simple blue dress and a cardigan, her white hair neatly styled. But Marcus could see the tension in her shoulders, the hope and fear warring in her eyes. "Thank you for calling," she said, sliding into the booth across from him. "I didn't sleep at all last night. I was afraid I'd scared you away forever." "You didn't scare me away," Marcus said. "You shocked me, yes, but you didn't scare me." He paused, then pulled out the wooden box and set it on the table between them. "I found this morning, in my mother's things." Eleanor stared at the box, her face going pale. "Is that—" "Look inside." With trembling hands, Eleanor opened the box. When she saw the hospital bracelet, she let out a sound somewhere between a gasp and a sob. She lifted it carefully, as if it might disintegrate in her hands. "Baby girl Whitmore," she whispered. "Oh God." She kept it. She had it all along. "And this?" Marcus said, handing her the letter. Eleanor unfolded the letter, and as she read it, tears began to stream down her face. Her shoulders shook with silent sobs. When she finished, she clutched the letter to her chest, rocking slightly. "She read it," Eleanor choked out. "She knew I looked for her. She knew I loved her." "She knew," Marcus confirmed gently. "She never told me about you. But she kept these things. She kept them close. That has to mean something." Eleanor nodded, unable to speak. Marcus flagged down a waitress and ordered 2 glasses of water, giving Eleanor time to compose herself. When she finally looked up at him again, her eyes were red but clear. "Why do you think she never reached out?" Eleanor asked. "If she knew I was looking for her, why didn't she try to find me?" Marcus had thought about this all morning. I think she was afraid. My mom, she was a strong woman, but she had her fears. She was afraid of rejection, of getting hurt. Maybe she thought that after all those years you'd moved on, or maybe she was angry about being given up in the first place, even if she understood why. I don't know. I wish I could ask her. What would you do in Marcus's situation? Comment below and let's discuss. And make sure you're subscribed. You won't believe where this story goes next. Eleanor wiped her eyes with a napkin. "Tell me about her. Please. Tell me everything. What was she like? What made her laugh? What were her dreams?" And so Marcus did. For the next 2 hours, over refills of coffee and plates of food they barely touched, Marcus told Eleanor about Dorothy Jean Johnson. He told her about his mother's love of old movies, especially anything with Katharine Hepburn. He told her about the way she hummed while she cooked, how she made the best peach cobbler in the neighborhood, how she volunteered at a homeless shelter every Thanksgiving. He told Eleanor about the hard times, too, about his father's death from a heart attack when Marcus was just 10, about how his mother had worked 3 jobs to keep them afloat, about the times he'd woken up in the middle of the night and found her crying at the kitchen table over bills she couldn't pay. "But she never gave up," Marcus said. "No matter how hard it got, she never gave up. She fought for me. She made sure I graduated high school, made sure I had opportunities she never had. Everything she did with love." Eleanor listened to every word, occasionally asking questions, often crying. When Marcus pulled out his phone and showed her photos, his mother at his high school graduation, at Sarah's birth, at family gatherings, Eleanor traced her daughter's face on the screen with a gentle finger. "She looks like my mother," Eleanor whispered. "Your great-grandmother, the same eyes." "Tell me about her," Marcus said. "Tell me about your family, my mother's family." Eleanor took a deep breath. "My father was a mechanic, William Whitmore. He was a hard man, strict, very concerned with what the neighbors thought. My mother, Catherine, she was softer, but she was terrified of my father. They weren't bad people, but they were products of their time. When I got pregnant, the father was a boy I'd been seeing, Jimmy Caruso. We were in love, or thought we were. When I told him I was pregnant, he disappeared, joined the army. I heard years later he died in Vietnam." She paused, lost in memory. "My parents sent me to a home for unwed mothers in Indiana. It was called the Haven, though there was nothing Haven-like about it. We worked all day, cleaning, sewing, cooking, and they told us we were lucky they were helping us hide our shame. When Dorothy was born, they told me the adoptive parents were good people, that she'd have a better life than I could give her. Then they took her away." "And your parents?" Marcus asked. "They died in the early 70s. A car accident. We'd been estranged since I turned 21 and left home. I tried to reconcile with them once, but my father refused to speak to me, said I was still a disgrace to the family name." Eleanor's voice was bitter. "After they died, I searched their house hoping to find some clue about Dorothy's adoption, but there was nothing. They'd destroyed everything. Don't forget to leave a like if this story is moving you. Every like helps us share more stories like this with the world." "I'm sorry," Marcus said, "for everything you went through, for the loss, for the pain." Eleanor reached across the table and took his hand. "Marcus, you've given me something I never thought I'd have. A connection to Dorothy, a piece of her life. Knowing that she was loved, that she had a son who adored her, that she made a difference in the world. That's everything to me." They sat in silence for a moment, hands clasped across the table. Then Marcus said, "I have a daughter, Sarah. She's 19, studying to be a teacher. She would have loved her grandmother, and I think she'd like to meet her great-grandmother." Eleanor's eyes widened. You'd let me meet her? "If you want to, if you're interested in being part of our lives." "Marcus, Eleanor's voice broke again. "I would love nothing more, but I don't want to intrude. I don't want to force myself into your family." "You're not forcing anything," Marcus said firmly. "You're family, you're Sarah's great-grandmother, you're my grandmother, and I think my mother would want us to know each other. She kept that bracelet for a reason. She kept your letter for a reason. Maybe she couldn't bring herself to reach out while she was alive, but she left us these breadcrumbs to find each other." Eleanor squeezed his hand tightly. "Thank you. Thank you for giving me this chance." They exchanged phone numbers, made plans to meet again the following week. As they stood to leave, Eleanor pulled Marcus into a hug, a tight, fierce embrace that spoke of 50 years of loss and longing, finally finding some measure of peace. Make sure you're subscribed, because Chapter 3 is going to bring this emotional journey to an incredible conclusion. Hit that subscribe button now. Chapter 3. Bridges Across Time. 3 weeks after that first meeting at Lou's place, Marcus stood outside Sarah's apartment near Northwestern's campus, his stomach tight with nerves. Eleanor stood beside him, equally anxious, clutching a small gift bag. "What if she doesn't like me?" Eleanor whispered. "What if she thinks I'm just some old woman trying to insert herself where she doesn't belong?" "She's going to love you," Marcus assured her, though his own hands were sweating. He'd told Sarah everything over the phone, about picking up Eleanor that rainy night, about the revelations, about finding Dorothy's hidden box of memories. Sarah had been shocked, emotional, but ultimately excited to meet her great-grandmother. Still, Marcus worried. This was a lot to process for a 19-year-old. He knocked on the door, and moments later, Sarah opened it. She was a beautiful young woman with her grandmother's eyes and her father's warm smile. When she saw Eleanor, she froze for just a second, taking in the elderly woman's nervous expression. Then Sarah stepped forward and pulled Eleanor into a gentle hug. "Hi," Sarah said softly. "I'm so glad to finally meet you." Eleanor's face crumpled, and she hugged Sarah back, crying openly. "You look so much like her, so much like Dorothy. Oh, sweetheart, it's wonderful to meet you too." They moved inside, and over the next several hours, 3 generations of a family once torn apart began to weave themselves back together. Sarah made tea, and they sat in her small living room, surrounded by textbooks and posters, talking and laughing, and sometimes crying. Eleanor brought out old photographs, pictures of herself as a young woman, of her parents, of the house in Chicago where Dorothy had been born. She told stories about growing up in the 1940s and 50s, about the music she'd loved, the dreams she'd had before everything changed. Sarah, in turn, told Eleanor about her studies, her goals, her boyfriend who was studying engineering. She showed Eleanor videos on her phone, clips from her grandmother Dorothy that Marcus had digitized from old home movies. They watched together as a younger Dorothy blew out birthday candles, laughed at a family picnic, held baby Sarah for the first time. "She had such a beautiful laugh," Eleanor said, tears streaming down her face as she watched. "Such joy in her. You did that, Marcus. You gave her that joy." "She gave it to herself," Marcus replied. "She chose joy, even when life was hard." If you're loving this reunion, show some love by hitting that like button. And comment below, do you believe families can heal even across generations of separation? As the afternoon wore on, Eleanor pulled out the gift bag she'd brought. Inside was a leather journal, its pages yellowed with age. "I've been keeping this since 1954, Eleanor said, handing it to Sarah. "It's a journal of letters. Letters I wrote to Dorothy over the years, even though I had no way to send them. I wanted her to know that I thought about her every single day, that I wondered what she was doing, if she was happy, if she was safe. I thought maybe you'd like to have it. To know what I wished I could have told her." Sarah opened the journal carefully. The first entry was dated September 4th, 1954, the day after Dorothy's birth. "My dearest baby girl. Today was the hardest day of my life. They took you from me before I could even hold you properly. But I saw your face. I saw your tiny fingers and your button nose and your perfect little mouth. You are the most beautiful thing I've ever seen, and you are mine, even if the world says you're not. I promise you, even though you'll never read this, I will never forget you. I will never stop loving you. Wherever you are, whoever raises you, know that your first mother loved you with everything she had." Sarah read silently, tears rolling down her cheeks. Then she looked up at Eleanor with eyes full of emotion. "Thank you," Sarah whispered. "Thank you for never forgetting her, for loving her all these years." Eleanor smiled through her tears. "It was the easiest thing I've ever done." That evening, as Marcus drove Eleanor home, they talked about the future. Eleanor wanted to be involved in their lives, but she was careful not to overstep. She suggested occasional dinners, maybe helping Sarah with her studies. Eleanor had been a librarian for 40 years before retiring, and she loved academia. "You know," Marcus said as they pulled up to her apartment building, "Thanksgiving is next month. It was my mother's favorite holiday. She always said it was about gratitude and family, the 2 most important things in life. Would you like to spend it with us? With me and Sarah?" Eleanor turned to him, her eyes wide. "Marcus, I would be honored, truly honored." "It's settled then. You can tell us more stories about my mother. And maybe you can teach Sarah how to make that peach cobbler I told you about. My mom's recipe. I'd love to, Eleanor said. Though I have to warn you, I'm not much of a cook. Neither was my mom when she started. Marcus laughed. But she learned, and she made it her own. Make sure you're subscribed to our channel. We share stories like this every week, real stories about real people finding hope and connection. Hit that subscribe button and turn on notifications. Over the following months, Eleanor became a cherished part of Marcus and Sarah's life. She attended Sarah's end-of-semester presentation, cheering the loudest when Sarah received an A. She came to Marcus's apartment for Sunday dinners, bringing old photographs and stories that filled in the gaps of their family history. On Christmas Eve, Marcus gave Eleanor a gift, a framed photograph of Dorothy from her nursing school graduation, alongside the photograph of young Eleanor holding baby Dorothy. He'd had them professionally restored and printed, creating a visual bridge across the years. Now she's with both of us, Marcus said as Eleanor cried over the gift. She's connected us, even though she's gone. But the most profound moment came in late January, almost exactly a year after Dorothy's death. Marcus took Eleanor to Oakwood Cemetery, where his mother was buried. They stood together in front of the simple headstone, Dorothy Jean Johnson, 1954-2022. Beloved mother and grandmother, she made.